Hey everyone, Chris from CK Cycles here. Well, I received a question or a comment in one of my XT500 restoration videos asking for the dimensions of my service mount that I built for the engine to set in while I worked on it. The service mount I built was kind of something I fabricated in the process. I really didn't do a bunch of precise measurements off of the engine case and then build the mount and then set the engine in it. I pretty much just took a couple basic measurements to make sure I had enough clearance under the engine case to my welding table here so I could fit drip pans and things like that underneath the engine case. But like I said, I kind of built it with the engine in place just so that it would hold the engine and work. The first steps I did was to fabricate the two rear pieces here. This is 1.5" angle iron. It's about a 1/2 inch hole that I drilled, and that hole is, I would say a 1/2 or 5/8 inch in from the top and 1/2 or 5/8 inch in from the edge with rounded edges here. I found that my holes had to be pretty close to both this edge and the top edge because the engine really kind of hugged the mounts here, and that's why I had to kind of round them off and keep my holes close to both ends. I welded these two in place first, and then I set the engine on my table, and the engine was blocked up a little bit, and I put my pin through, so the engine was kind of setting just kind of a little bit like this with a couple wooden blocks. Then what I did is I lifted the engine up and got it to the point where I wanted it, the orientation that I wanted it to be at, and I blocked it up. And then I measured and cut these and set these in place with a pin, and then tack welded these onto the welding table. So I kind of built it with the engine in place, and it seemed to work really well. I'll take some still photographs of this with the tape measure for reference so that you can see the dimensions, but the mounts are all made out of 1.5" angle iron. The rear mounts are 5 inches long, and they are about 4 inches wide. The front mounts are about 10 inches long and 3 inches wide. The engine didn't get like squeezed in here tight or anything like that. These were wide enough that the engine still had a little bit of lateral movement in there, and that kind of made it easy to get the pins out and things like that. Plus, I didn't want this steel, rubbing on the engine while I'm trying to work on it, so there was a little bit of lateral movement there. The nice thing was also is that I could pivot the engine depending if I had to work underneath it or something like that. I could pivot it this way, or I could pivot it this way as well with some blocks and things like that. So, like I said, I'll take some photographs here with the tape measure so that you can see the exact measurements. I'll also try and get a couple photos of the engine actually in the mount so you can see the clearances and how tight it is and why these rounded corners are necessary. So I hope this is helpful. And if you have any questions, let me know. But let's look at these photos. So I really didn't have any good still photos of the engine in the mount, but I was able to screen capture this off of one of my previous videos. And you can see that the clearance here on the front of the engine is pretty tight, and on the rear of the engine, the clearance around the rounded edge is even tighter. So that's just kind of the purpose around the rounded edges. So, all right, well, this is Chris for CK Cycle. I'll sign off. I hope this is helpful, and let me know if you have any questions. Bye-bye.